Hey everybody, this is Darren Sabedra again with the Bay Area News Group, Mercury News, East Bay Times, here with Joseph Dycus and Mike Lefkow. Guys, we're going to cross the halfway point of the regular season this week. We're going into week 6. It's been quick, right?
Yeah, where'd the time go?
Yeah. Lefty, you ready for this season to hit the home stretch, at least the regular season? Go on the backside, the back 9. Last week was pretty interesting. De La Salle. We were wondering a year plus ago if they would ever lose to a NorCal team. Now they've lost to 4 since last September. Lefty, what do you make of the Spartans? We wrote about them in Monday Morning Lights this week. 4 losses by a total of 11 points. Should they be pushing the panic button over there on at De La Salle, or what do you think?
Well, I don't think they should be pushing the panic button, but I mean, a few schools have caught up to them. Folsom, Serra, and you can argue that St. Francis has, and maybe a couple more. Should they be pushing the panic button? Well, I mean, this is still high school football. I mean, 4 losses by 11 points isn't reason to push the panic button, but I'm sure there are a lot of schools that would. I can think of 2 in Southern California that would, and I think there are a couple that are close behind in Northern California that would.
That would. But yeah, you look at, we're talking about Serra and Folsom, and we pointed this out in Monday Morning Lights that they in the last year have had losses that were much worse than 4 games by 11 points. I mean, Serra got hammered by St. Francis last year with a league championship on the line, and then Folsom also lost, 4 games by 70-plus points total, including a 21-point loss in October of last year to De La Salle. So if that were to happen at De La Salle, I think there would be cause to maybe push the panic button a little bit, but they just got to figure something out. They got to figure out that if they're gonna be in tight games like this, they got to figure out how to make the plays that are the difference in these games. I mean, you look at all 4 of the games. De La Salle has the lead against St. Francis, and they give up a 16-yard touchdown pass with 15, 16 seconds left in the game. Last week, they give up a touchdown with 15 seconds left. Against Serra, they blow a 2-touchdown lead in the 4th quarter. Against Folsom last year, they don't get the 2-point conversion. They get stopped at the goal line and lose by a point. So it's just those little plays that are costing them. And they, in their heyday, they weren't in these type of games. They were winning by 30, 40 points.
I think you can still make the argument that De La Salle is every bit the equal of all these other schools, that some of these schools have caught up to them. But, one thing about De La Salle that I will say, you talk about they haven't been blown out in any of these games. They know how to play the game. They know how to stay in the game. They know how to win still. I think that some of these other schools, they end up getting blown out. They fall behind, they panic, and then they end up losing by 20 points, 3 or 4 touchdowns. De La Salle doesn't do that. So, I mean, at this point, to me, De La Salle is the equivalent of any program in Northern California. But teams like Folsom and Serra have caught up to them.
I guess the next step in this, and we'll see if it happens this season, is will an NCS team beat De La Salle? They don't play San Ramon Valley is not on the schedule this season, at least in the regular season. Pittsburgh, it's been 31 years. Is this the team that will beat De La Salle? I mean, they
got the talent to.
Yeah, they still have that streak going. And I mean, I don't think they're paying much attention to it over at De La Salle, but at least from the outside, you still say that within their section, they still have not lost to anybody since Pittsburgh did it in 1991, which is pretty unbelievable.
I don't think it happens this year.
You do not?
No, I think De La Salle is still the best team in the NCS.
Yeah. Joseph, you're new to this scene. What do you think about? I
mean, I think that in a way, De La Salle not being the dominant, like the outlandishly dominant force that they were for the last 30 years is probably a good thing for Bay Area football. You know, good to have new faces. You're not going to have the same team winning all these big games over and over and over and over. So for other schools, it's probably a good thing. I agree with what Lefty said, that De La Salle hasn't been blown out in any of these games. They still know how to play football. It's just, you got to wonder how much of high school football is just, you 50-50 plays, and maybe for the last 30 years, whenever they had those 50-50 plays, they happen to go their way. And right now it's just, they're on the other side of that. And how much of that is just like statistics, and eventually you're going to have some things not, go your way on the field, balances not go your way.
The Spartans have this week off. They don't have to worry about it until the following week when they have a huge game at St. Mary's of Stockton. And St. Mary's is undefeated. And if St. Mary's were to beat De La Salle on October 7th on its home field, and let's say they beat them by 10 or 14 points, and then St. Mary's runs the table and goes on to win the Sac-Joaquin Section Division I championship, which will also include Folsom in that division, then St. Mary's might be the team the CIF picks to play Mater Dei or St. John Bosco over Serra. I still think that's a long shot, but Lefty, do you think that's a possibility, or do you think if Serra runs the table, they're going to be the team that the CIF chooses?
That would be interesting, because if they both run the table, they'll both have beaten De La Salle. And if St. Mary's beats De La Salle by 10 or 17 points or whatever, you might have to take St. Mary's over Serra. I mean, you look at head-to-head competition, St. Mary's won by more. But then at the same time, the St. Mary's is playing them up in Stockton. Serra went up to Concord to play De La Salle. So I don't know. That would be a tough call for they'll be sitting there flipping their coins.
Right. Well, then St. Mary's also might have to play Folsom in the playoffs if they and they'll either win a division that includes Folsom, or they'll have to beat Folsom head-to-head to win the section and qualify for the regionals or the Open Division State Championship.
One thing going for Serra is they'll have played a tougher overall schedule.
Right. Speaking of Serra, they're playing Mitty. Serra's only home night game of the season. They're bringing in the portable lights there at Brady Family Stadium. Mitty has been one of the stories of the first month of the season, 4-0 after going 1-9 last year. Will's Towers has been superb. So has Danny Scudero, Ben Kim on the receiving end. But this is a huge, huge test for Mitty going up to San Mateo. And this is one of Mitty's biggest WCal games in, I want to say, several years. I was going back through the records. I know they had the really good team in 2013 that played Serra in the Open Division CCS Championship game. Might have to go back to that season for a game that Mitty has had of this magnitude. Joseph, what do you think? I mean, you think Mitty is ready to make that step, or do you think Serra is still a cut above the Monarchs and the rest of the WCAL?
I think that Serra is probably still a step or maybe two steps above them. I mean, Mitty's a great story. Shannon Rubin had a great recap of their win. What did they call themselves? The Gritty Mitty.
Gritty Mitty beating the Fighting Irish of Sacred Heart Cathedral on Friday night at Kezar to go to 1-0 in WCAL play.
I still think that Serra probably is a little bit better, or maybe a lot better. Maybe I'm being too harsh. They're better than Mitty. I do think it might be a close game though, or at least close for a half or close for a while.
Lefty, what do you think?
Or are we supposed to give away our pick right now?
Don't give away your pick. Don't give away your pick. But what do you think of Mitty and the story that Danny Sullivan, who's had a few rough seasons as a head coach? I'm really happy for him. I mean, this is great to see Mitty back among teams that we're talking about.
I think Mitty is a really good football team. Now, whether they're good enough to beat Serra, That's something else. But they have come a long way. They're a really good football team. If you're going to take a look at early season candidates for Bay Area Coach of the Year, Sullivan certainly has to be in the conversation. I mean, give all the credit in the world to Mitty. They've had a great year. That doesn't mean they're going to go out and beat Serra on Saturday, but
Friday.
They have really been a surprise, and you got to give them a lot of credit.
Right. I will be at that game, so I will be able to tell you guys all about it next week or in our recap, mercurynews.com and eastbaytimes.com on late Friday night or early Saturday morning. Last game we'll talk about here before we go into the picks. McClymonds, undefeated, going out to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh coming off the loss to Folsom 2 weeks ago. Both teams had last week off, so they're both going to be coming off buys. What do you think of McClymonds, Lefty, and what do you think a win over Pittsburgh would say about Coach Peters' program?
Well, I mean, everybody knows he's got a terrific program, and this just kind of, underlines that. If McClymonds wins, that's going to mean that in the CIF playoffs, they're going to start seeing some Division I or Division I AA, Division II type games. It's going to bump them up.
Right.
So I guess maybe there's a plus and a minus to winning that game.
Right. What do you, Joseph? What do you think of a win for Pittsburgh would mean? Given that they're coming off a tough loss, if they win this game here against McClymonds, which was one of the games that kind of stood out on their schedule, and then go into BVAL play next week. What would a win for Pittsburgh mean on Friday night over McClymonds?
I mean, I think it would. I don't want to give away my pick, but I mean, McClymonds, they have. I don't know, maybe if their defensive line is as good as Folsom's, but it's pretty darn good. And that's the one thing they really struggled with against Folsom was protecting Jaden Rashada. So if they can go out there on Friday night and keep Rashada's jersey mostly clean, I don't know how challenged they're going to be in their league schedule. So this might be one of the last true tests along the trenches for Pittsburgh. And if they can win this game, then they can show is people who are putting together these games, okay, they can handle a team in the trenches. They might be better than the farther we get along from this, the more the Folsom loss just is confusing, because the rest if they beat McClymonds, they have one of the best resumes in the Bay Area, wouldn't you say?
Well, without question. I mean, their loss to Folsom wasn't bad. I mean, it was an 8-point loss. Mm-hmm. Pittsburgh had four interceptions in that game.
Yes,
and they had special teams breakdowns, and the Folsom coach afterwards thought that Folsom had stolen that game, and that Pittsburgh was the better team, which says quite a bit. I don't know if I don't know where he was coming from on that. I don't know if it was hyperbole or if he truly believed that. You were there. Did you feel like that Pittsburgh was better than Folsom?
I did. Yeah, I felt like Pittsburgh blew that game.
Okay.
Well, you know what this game reminds me of, Pitt and McClymonds? Remember a couple of years ago when McClymonds played the team from Channel Islands for the state championship?
Right, and they didn't.
That's what this game reminds me of.
I was thinking the same thing when we were doing our picks, that this is a game, and I was there that day over at Cerritos College, and McClymonds. I thought McClymonds was going to win that game, and they were overmatched, and that was a rough loss. I mean, to McClymonds' credit, they kept the score relative. I mean, I think it ended up being 24 to 0 or 21 to 0 or something like that. But
you're still talking about, like, back at that game, the school from Channel Islands had over 3,000 students. McClymonds has over 300.
Right.
This is the perfect example. Pittsburgh's a school of 30-something hundred students, and now, of course, Mac has great football players. I mean, their football team would be at a huge school. But this is very reminiscent of that game, and that's why this is what this game reminds me of.
All right. Hey, let's get to the picks, unless you guys have anything else you want to address. Ready for the picks?
Let's make these picks.
Starting off Thursday night, Burlingame going to Aragon. Burlingame at 2-2, Aragon at 3-1. Burlingame 7-5 versus Aragon in the Max Preps era, and they won the last meeting between these teams 41-0. Joseph, who you taking?
I'll take Aragon. They're the home team. They were a couple plays away from being 4-0. They had made a couple plays against Lincoln and San Jose. I'll go with Aragon.
Lefty.
I'm going with Aragon.
And I'm going with Aragon too. And so is the Cal Preps computer, which predicts Aragon to win 24-17. Let's start off Friday night. Phil Jensen is going to be at this game for us. California coming off a bye, 3-1, going up against Granada, 2-3. Granada's quarterback Quinn Boyd who is a candidate for Athlete of the Week. Bay Area News Group Athlete of the Week this week, threw for 351 yards, 3 touchdowns in a surprisingly comfortable win over San Leandro, 34-8 last week. California's 15-1 against Granada in the Max Preps era, including a 35-14 win in 2019. I'm going with California. Lefty?
Oh, I'm going with California. Maybe not a running clock, but pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah, I think California is going to be 16-1 against Granada after this.
All right. And Cal Preps computer also predicts the same thing, and they also predict close to a running clock at 42-14. St. Bernard's, they're coming way down, right? They're way up north.
Yeah,
St. Bernard's. Yeah. Coming down to play Oakland Tech, which last week we need to know something, Joseph. We need a story on Oakland Tech. They went out and beat Tennyson last week fairly comfortably, 34-6. Oakland Tech is at 3-1. They'll be at home to play St. Bernard's 2-2. Joseph, who you got?
I'm taking Oakland Tech. I think they're going to continue to roll.
Lefty?
Oh, I'm going to go with Oakland Tech. Verdell Larkin's doing a nice job there, Marshawn's cousin.
There you go. I'm going to do it with Oakland Tech as well. And Oakland Tech is the computer likes Oakland Tech too. Cal Preps is saying 31-14 for OT. Game 4 on the list. Vallejo 2-1-1 going to Doherty Valley 5-0. Does Doherty Valley get to 6-0? Doherty Valley has wins over, and let me check my notes here. Milpitas, Newark Memorial, Washington Fremont, Lowell, and Deer Valley. Vallejo lost to Salesian 35-0 and also has a tie against Alameda. I'm going to go Doherty Valley to go 6-0. Lefty, who you got?
Yeah, Doherty Valley easily.
Joseph?
Same, Doherty Valley. By the way, do you think it's going to be running clock?
Doherty Valley, Vallejo?
Yeah.
I'm not sure Doherty's got enough offense to do a running clock. I could see this game being 24-7, something like that.
Cal Preps says 31-7 for Doherty Valley. Game 5 on the list. Somebody's got to turn around their season here. St. Francis at 1-3, going to St. Ignatius for the St. Ignatius now playing its games under the lights there at SI in San Francisco. Both teams are 1-3. St. Francis's losses to Monterey Trail, De La Salle, and Serra. None of those games was closer than 21 points, right?
Mm-hmm.
SI with losses to Jesuit, St. Mary's of Stockton, the team we were just talking about, and Bellarmine. This was a tough one for me, but I'm going to take the Lancers to win this game. Lefty, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with St. Francis.
Joseph?
You know what? I'll take St. Ignatius. They're playing at home. I definitely don't think it's going to be a 3-touchdown win, but I think they'll win.
Cal Preps is taking St. Francis 26-14. Game 6 on the list. Heritage at Freedom. Heritage coming off a 17-7 loss to James Logan last week, and James Logan was able to contain Devin Rivers. Rivers had at least 200 yards in the previous 4 games. And he was held to, what was he held to, Lefty? It was like 91
yards and 19 carries.
There you go. Well, the Patriots going to Freedom to play Freedom at 2-2. Freedom has an impressive win over Menlo, and then they won last week over a team from Chula Vista, East Lake. Another impressive score. Freedom is 11-4 against Heritage in the Max Preps era, but Heritage won last year 50-30.
Oof.
And they also won in the spring of 2021, 35-28. This was one of the tougher games for me to pick. I went with Freedom. Lefty, who you got?
I'm going to take Heritage, but I think this is going to be a close game.
Joseph?
I'm going to go with Lefty. I think Heritage wins this one. I actually don't think it's going to be that close of a game. I think it'll be like 28-14, 28-13, something like that. The
computer thinks it's going to be close. Cal Preps took Heritage 35-31.
Zach Sims, Freedom took some criticism when he was hired, but I think this guy might be a pretty good young coach.
They're playing well. I've
been impressed with what Sims has done so far.
All right. Next game on the list, Game 7, the Battle of the Den. Battle of Almaden, the Almaden Valley out there in South San Jose. We're Pioneer at 4-0 going up against Leland 1-4. Leland with losses to Half Moon Bay, Wilcox, Santa Teresa, and Westmont. Pioneer, an impressive 4-0 at this point. These teams are 8-8 in the Max Preps era. Leland won last year 28-0. I'm taking Pioneer. Lefty, who you got?
I'm going to take Leland.
You're taking Leland. All right. Joseph?
I'm going to take Pioneer, but I also think that Leland is probably better than their 1-4 record shows. Their last 2 losses are by one's in double overtime. The other one is 28-25.
Right.
And their losses is the Wilcox and the other one's the Half Moon Bay, who are both ranked. So, I mean, I kind of see where Levy's coming from, but Pioneer, they're 4-0. I'll go with them.
Cal Prep says Pioneer 21, Leland 19.
I think Leland's ready to pull one.
This is going to be one of the games of the night. We're going to have Glenn Reeves out there in San Jose, out in the Rose Garden, to see Lincoln of San Jose at 4-0, playing host to Branham, 5-0. William Augustine for Branham, the quarterback, has been sensational, and so has the quarterback at Lincoln, Taden Phillips. Branham is 0-6 against Lincoln in the Max Preps era, but they have not played in 7 years. Another tough one for me to pick. I went with Lincoln. Probably would have went Branham if they were playing at home, but I'm taking Lincoln on its home field to go to 5-0. Joseph, who you got?
I'm going to go with Lincoln, too, for the same reasons you just said. They're playing at home, and I think that'll be a difference.
Lefty?
Yeah, I'm going with Lincoln. Also the home field advantage.
And Cal Preps is going Lincoln 35-31. So another close one. Another tough one to pick. Menlo-Atherton at 2-2. Going to Half Moon Bay 4-0. We talked about this in our meeting yesterday. Half Moon Bay, a tremendously coached team. They are 1-6 against MA in the Max Preps era. They lost last year at MA, and that was a very good MA team with Matt McLeod at quarterback. The final score last year was MA 47 and Half Moon Bay 46. So they lost by a point last year. I'm taking Half Moon Bay to pull off the upset to go to 5-0, winning on its home field. Joseph, who you got?
Yeah, I think Half Moon Bay wins. I think actually it'll be a pretty comfortable win for Half Moon Bay.
Wow. Lefty.
Yeah. I'm not predicting running clock, by the way.
I'm going with MA. I compared the 2 schedules, and I don't think Half Moon Bay has played a team nearly as tough as some of the teams that
they've had a week to prepare, and they are so well coached.
Yes, they are, and I was looking for every excuse I could to try to pick Half Moon Bay, but I just think MA has played a tougher schedule, and I think it's going to pay off for them.
Cal Preps predicts MA to win 35-28, and we will have Dave Kiefer out at that game. So Mitty at Serra. The game we talked about earlier. It's the one night game for the season. Home night game for Serra. Serra 4-0. Mitty 4-0. Mitty's been a great story this year. The Monarchs are 3-16-1 against Patrick Walsh's team in the Max Preps era, including a 48-7 loss last year. The last Mitty win over Serra was in 2014, so 8 years. I don't think they're going to get it this year, but I think it's going to be competitive for a while. I do think Serra will end up winning by a couple of scores. I'm taking the Padres. Joseph, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going with the Padres. I think it'll be close for a half, though.
Lefty?
Yeah, I think it's going to be very similar to the game last week between Serra and St. Francis. Close for a half, and then Serra comes out rolling in the second half.
All right. We all take Serra in that game. We have 5 more games to pick. Let's get them real quick. McClymonds, we talked about this earlier, 3-0, going to Pittsburgh 3-1. These teams have only met one time in the Max Preps era, which goes back to 2004. Pittsburgh lost that night to McClymonds in, I didn't write the year down. I want to say it was 2010. 26-21 was the final score. I'm taking Pittsburgh in this game, kind of like what we talked about. I keep thinking back to that state game in 2019 or 2018, whichever year it was, where McClymonds went to one of the premier games down in Southern California and got beat by multiple scores. I'm taking Pittsburgh. Joseph, you're going to be there. Who you got?
McClymonds.
Ooh.
Yeah.
There you go.
They've got the pass rushers and they've got the running game to keep the ball out of Pittsburgh's hands.
Which sideline are you going to be standing on?
I'll probably jump around depending on the quarter.
All right. Well, you know what?
It's easier to stand on the Max sideline.
Yeah, whichever one's less crowded.
What's that?
Whichever one's less crowded.
Yeah.
I said Vic Galley might be happy with your pick. I don't think he wants us picking his team in these big games.
I'm going to make Vic unhappy. I'm taking Pitt.
You're taking Pitt. So 2 for Pitt, 1 for McClymonds. We got 4 Saturday games to pick. This one's an interesting one. St. Patrick, St. Vincent at 4-0, traveling to Salesian at 3-1. Salesian's losses were to Moreau and Berean Christian. St. Patrick, St. Vincent has a win over Berean Christian. St. Patrick, St. Vincent is 4-9 against Salesian in the Max Preps era and lost last year 36-8.
Salesian, what's Salesian's record?
3-1.
Oh, okay.
Wait,
yeah,
no,
their loss was
3-2, right?
3-2. They lost to Moreau Catholic and Berean Christian.
Okay.
I think Salesian playing it. If this game were up in Vallejo, I would take St. Patrick, St. Vincent, but on a Saturday afternoon, it's Salesian. We've seen what Salesian does on Saturday afternoon games at home. I'm taking Salesian to win. Lefty, who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Salesian.
I'll go with Salesian.
All right. 3 more to pick. Bellarmine against Archbishop Reardon. Bellarmine coming off the win over SI. The Bells are now 2-2. Going against Reardon, 3-1. Reardon got a win last week over Valley Christian, which was Reardon's first win at Valley Christian in program history. Things will be close, but I'm taking the Bells. Lefty, who you got?
I'm going with Bellarmine.
Joseph?
I wanted to take Reardon, but I'm going to go with Bellarmine too.
All right. All 3 of us taking the Bells. 2 more to go. This one was also a tough one. Oh, wait. Cal Preps is predicting Bellarmine to win 28-21, and Cal Preps is predicting St. Patrick, St. Vincent to win 36-35. So the computer's taking St. Patrick, St. Vincent, and they're also taking Pitt 34-12 over McClymonds.
Wow. I don't think it's going to be that big a.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't agree with the computer on that one.
Yeah, it's a little too.
All right. 2 more to go. Clayton Valley back in action. That's going to be a 15-day break between their tough loss to Turlock. The Ugly Eagles at 1-3, traveling to Carmichael out in the Sacramento area to play Jesuit, 5-0. Jesuit has wins over SI and Sheldon. And Clayton Valley has tough losses to Salinas, Galoro of Loomis, and Turlock, all on its home field in Concord. I'm taking Coach Murph's team to get back on track after the 15-day break. I'm taking Clayton Valley to go to 2-3 and to win, to set itself up for a run in EBAL play. So I'm taking Clayton Valley. Lefty, who you got?
I'm going to take Jesuit.
You're taking Jesuit. All right. Joseph.
Yeah, I'm taking Jesuit too. That's another tough road game for Clayton Valley.
Yeah. The computer likes Jesuit too at 24-10. Last game on the list, which would have been more in the middle, but now it's a Saturday night game, was moved from Friday to Saturday. We got Menlo School at 3-1, going to Amador Valley at 3-1. Menlo's coming off the win over Palo Alto 18-0, but they lost badly in their last trip to the East Bay, losing to Freedom. And Amador coming off the emotional win last week over rival Foothill, and its one loss was to El Cerrito, and that score was 7-3. I'm taking Amador Valley to win, to go to 4-1. Joseph, who you got?
I'll go with Amador Valley.
All right. Lefty?
I'm going to take Amador.
And the computer likes Amador 22-8. Guys, anything else you want to add? We're did 15 games. We talked a little bit about De La Salle. We talked about Serra. We talked about St. Mary's of Stockton. Talked about Pittsburgh and McClymonds. Anything else you guys want to discuss before we wrap this one up?
No, I'm good.
I'm good.
Check us out, mercurynews.com, eastbaytimes.com. We have coverage all weekend. Be sure to sign up for a digital subscription. We always have deals, so just click on the link and see what the latest one is. Anyhow, thanks for watching, and we will see you next week.